Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Speak Smart podcast.
It's great to be here.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into social media,
Oh, yeah.
which seems like it's kind of woven into like the fabric of our lives these days.
It really is.
And you sent us some really interesting mix of sources.
Yeah.
Everything from just basic definitions of social media to like discussions about the pros and cons, how to use it all safely. So
It's a good mix.
yeah, it is a really great mix, and it's going to allow us to go really deep today.
Yeah.
And what I think is really interesting is one of the things you mentioned before we started recording is how it feels like social media has been around forever.
It really does.
But it's actually a relatively recent phenomenon.
It is. Yeah. It's kind of amazing when you think about how ubiquitous it is now.
Right.
How integrated it is into our lives.
Totally.
Yeah. But it's really only been around for,
Yeah.
a couple of decades
Yeah.
at most.
So we're still like figuring out, the long-term impact of it all.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of what makes this deep dive so interesting.
Yeah.
Is that we're kind of exploring this evolving landscape together.
Right.
Trying to understand both the individual and societal implications
Exactly.
of this powerful tool.
Okay, so let's kind of like rewind back to the basics.
Yeah, let's get back to the fundamentals.
One of the sources is this really interesting chat amongst a group of people about social media. And they start off with a very simple definition to say connecting with people online.
Yeah,
And it sounds almost too straightforward, doesn't it?
it does. But I think that simplicity is actually key.
Okay.
Because at its core, that's what social media is all about.
Oh, wow.
About tapping into our very human need for connection.
Right.
And I think that's a big reason why it's exploded in popularity.
Okay.
We are social creatures.
Yes.
By nature, and these platforms provide us with new and ever-evolving ways to interact, to share and to build communities.
Yes. And that same chat goes on to mention, all the big names we're familiar with.
Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram.
Twitter.
TikTok.
It's like this whole digital universe out there.
Right. Like it's almost overwhelming.
It can be.
Yeah. So before we go any further, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
For you listening right now, which platforms do you use?
Right.
What draws you to them?
Yeah. And as we kind of unpack this topic throughout this deep dive,
Yeah.
it might be helpful to sort of reflect on your own social media habits,
Totally.
right? Because what are the things that keep you coming back?
Yes.
What are the benefits you're getting out of it?
Right. And why are some of these platforms more appealing to you than others?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's a personal thing.
It is.
Social media.
Yeah.
It's about individual choices and preferences.
It's a great point.
Yeah.
I mean, reflecting on your personal experiences, I think, can really, ground this whole conversation. Because when we talk about the popularity of social media, it's not just like this abstract trend.
Right.
This is millions or billions of people's stories.
Exactly. It's the aggregate of all those individual motivations and experiences.
Right. And that chat actually highlights some of those motivations.
Yeah.
Like the biggest ones they mentioned is staying connected with friends and family,
Of course.
no matter the distance.
Absolutely.
And I know for me personally,
Yeah.
I've reconnected with old friends, stayed close with family that live overseas.
Yeah. It's a game changer
Yeah.
in that sense.
I wouldn't trade that for the world.
Me neither.
Yeah.
It's remarkable how social media has bridged those distances.
Totally.
And it goes beyond just maintaining existing connection.
No.
Social media can also help you discover new communities
Right.
based on shared interests.
Right.
Like whether it's
Right.
cooking or gaming or books or, Sophia mentioned learning English.
Right.
There's probably a space online where you can connect with like-minded people.
So it's like finding your tribe,
It really is.
even if your tribe is scattered around the globe.
Exactly. And who knows?
Yeah.
Those online connections could even evolve into real life friendships.
Right.
The possibilities are really exciting.
I think so too. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the things that I find most exciting about it all. But it's also kind of like a little bit intimidating.
That can be.
Just the scope of it all.
It's a vast digital landscape out there.
It is.
But I think that's also what makes it so fascinating. It's like this constantly evolving world full of possibilities.
It's true. And it's interesting because this whole digital landscape is almost like a mirror reflecting our real world social needs.
I like that analogy.
Right.
It really is.
It's where we go to, seek belonging and to exchange information and to form bonds.
Exactly. It's just in a different medium.
Right. In a different way.
It's like an extension of our offline social lives.
Yep.
Exactly. Cool. Okay. So we've talked about the popularity and that, deep human need for connection. But let's get like a little more specific.
Okay.
what are some of the tangible benefits of social media?
Yeah, let's dive into the good stuff.
Yeah, the things that make it so appealing and so impactful.
Right, because it's not just about connecting for the sake of connecting.
Right.
There are real, tangible benefits that social media can bring to our lives.
Right.
And I think we can categorize those positive impacts in a few different ways.
Okay.
We can look at the personal benefits,
Okay.
the professional benefits, the societal benefits, and even just the entertainment value.
Oh, yeah.
So let's start with the personal benefit.
Okay, let's do it.
Maintaining relationships, as we've discussed, is huge.
Huge.
But it also extends to things like finding support groups
Okay.
for specific needs or challenges you might be facing.
Right, and those support groups can be such a lifeline,
We can.
especially for people who might feel isolated or misunderstood in their offline lives. Absolutely, they provide a safe space to connect with others who
Yeah.
are going through similar experiences.
And share their stories,
To me-
and give advice, and just,
It's a sense of community.
yes, it's a sense of community, and it's incredibly powerful. And I've seen it firsthand
Me too.
where, these types of online spaces,
Yeah.
people are able to come together and, make each other feel less alone.
It's about feeling seen and heard and understood.
Yeah,
And that can be so valuable.
it is. And, and remember Sophia from the chat.
Oh, yeah.
She mentioned using social media to learn English.
Right.
And I think that's another fantastic personal benefit,
Absolutely.
accessing educational resources and learning new skills.
And the beauty of it is that so much of this knowledge is freely available
It is.
at our fingertips.
Right? I mean, think of all the free tutorials and language resources
Yeah.
and online courses
It's incredible.
that are out there now.
It really is.
You could learn practically anything
You can.
if you put your mind to it.
It's empowering.
It is.
It's like having access to a global library of knowledge.
Yeah. And it's not just about, formal education either.
Right.
I mean, think of all the creative communities out there that are sharing tips and inspiration,
Absolutely.
whether you're into, photography or writing or baking.
Yeah.
There's like a wealth of knowledge.
It's out there waiting to be explored.
Yes. I find that incredibly exciting.
Me too.
Yeah. And it's something that I think we often overlook.
We do. We get so caught up in the negative aspects
Yeah.
that we forget about all the amazing things
Blech.
that social media makes possible.
Totally.
It's true. We can get so, focused on the excitement of it all
Right.
that we sometimes forget to be mindful
Yes.
of the potential downsides.
Yes.
So it's important to acknowledge those as well.
Right. And, it's not about like demonizing social media.
No.
It's about, understanding its nuances
Exactly.
and developing like healthy habits.
Great. It's all about finding that balance between the good and the bad.
Totally. And speaking of that,
Yeah.
that chat about social media safety that you sent,
That's a great resource.
it is such a good resource.
Yeah.
And it covers, like a really wide range of concerns
It does.
and offers like really practical tips.
It's very practical,
Yeah.
which is what I like about it.
Yeah. It's not just like, fear mongering.
Right. It's about empowering people
Yes.
with knowledge.
Yes. Knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
Okay. So like, let's start with something really basic,
Okay.
but crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Password.
Yes. The foundation of online security.
Yes.
Strong passwords, regular changes.
Unique passwords for each account.
So important.
I mean, it sounds so simple,
It does.
but I think a lot of people just overlook it.
What's funny? People often underestimate the importance of strong passwords.
Yes, they do.
They really are your first line of defense
Yeah.
against unauthorized access.
It's like locking your front door.
Exactly.
You wouldn't use a flimsy lock.
Right. You want something sturdy.
You want something sturdy and reliable to protect your home and your belongings.
Exactly. So why wouldn't you do the same for your online accounts?
Right. Your digital space.
It's an extension of our physical lives
Yes, it is.
in many ways.
Okay, so we've got the passwords down.
Check.
What about like thinking before you post?
Ah, yes. The golden rule of social media.
I think so. Think before you click.
Yes. Consider your audience. Understand, the potential reach of what you're saying. And remember that, the internet has a very long memory.
It does.
Things don't just disappear,
That's right.
Well,
It's important to be mindful of your digital footprint.
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Every post, every comment, every like and share, it contributes to this ongoing record of your online activity.
So it's like a digital reputation
In a way, yes.
that's constantly evolving.
Exactly. And it's something that can follow you
Yeah.
throughout your life.
Yeah.
And, just as we strive for, kindness and respect in our offline interactions.
Of course.
Why wouldn't we do the same online?
Absolutely.
And that chat really emphasized that, the importance of like online etiquette.
Netiquette, as some people call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about being polite.
Avoiding saying things that you wouldn't say to someone's face.
Right. Because it's easy to forget that there's a real person
Yes.
on the other end of those words.
Yes.
Someone who has feelings.
And sometimes I think the anonymity of the internet can make people feel less inhibited.
It can.
Like they can say things that they wouldn't dare say in person.
And that can be very damaging.
It can.
It's important to remember that words have power.
They do, whether they're spoken or written,
Exactly.
online or offline.
They can have a profound impact.
Yeah. And sadly that, that lack of empathy sometimes manifests as cyberbullying.
Yes, which is a serious issue.
It is. And it can have devastating consequences.
And that's why it's so important to talk about it.
And to address it.
And to provide support for those who are affected by it.
Yes. And that chat actually had some really good advice on how to deal with cyberbullying.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, if you're being cyberbullied, don't engage with the bully.
Right.
Block them.
Report the behavior.
Yes. And seek support from trusted adults.
It's important not to suffer in silence.
No.
There are people who can help.
Yeah. And you know what I really like about that advice?
Yeah.
Is that it's about empowering victims.
Yeah, it is.
It's not about blaming them.
No.
It's about saying, you have options.
You do.
You don't have to tolerate this.
And you're not alone.
Right.
There are resources available, people who care.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about privacy settings.
Yes. Another crucial aspect of online safety.
I know it's one of those things that can seem a little bit like, oh, so
It
boring.
can seem a little bit tedious.
Tedious, but it's actually so important.
It is.
Because these are the tools that allow you to control
Who sees your posts?
who can contact you.
What information is shared?
It's all about control.
Right.
Taking control of your online experience.
And I think that's where media literacy comes in.
It does.
It's not just about like knowing how to use these platforms, but understanding,
How they work.
how they work.
Yeah, what data they collect.
What are they doing with that data?
Exactly. And how might that information be used?
Right, because it's not always for good.
It's important to be aware of the potential risks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to be an informed and empowered digital citizen.
I love that phrase, an empowered digital citizen.
Right.
It's about taking ownership of your online experience.
Yes. And not just being like a passive consumer.
Right. You're not just along for the ride.
Right. You have agency.
You do.
And that chat also had some really good advice about scams.
Oh, yeah. Scams are a huge problem online.
They are. And, too good to be true offers.
Right. If it sounds too good to be true,
It probably is.
it probably is.
Right? Requests for personal information from strangers.
Red flags.
Red flags.
All over the place.
And those are things that you should never ignore.
Right. Trust your instincts.
Yeah.
If something seems fishy, it probably is.
And, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
it's like the Wild West out there in some corners of the internet.
It can be.
You need to be savvy,
You need to be skeptical.
aware of the potential dangers.
Yeah. And if in doubt,
Yeah.
err on the side of caution.
Totally. Yeah. It's like you got to be like a digital detective.
You have to be street smart
Street smart.
in a digital sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've talked about a lot of like, kind of the darker side of social media,
Right. The potential pitfalls,
the things to be aware
the
of.
things to watch out for.
Yeah.
But let's not forget about all the good stuff.
Right.
Because
Because there is a lot of good stuff.
there is.
Yeah.
There's so much good that social media can bring to our lives.
Yeah. And I think that chat about social media's impact really highlighted, some really heartwarming stories
It did.
and examples. It's like inspiring to see, how these platforms can really bring people together
And make a real difference in the
and
world.
make a real difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like one of the most fundamental benefits, and one that we keep coming back to,
Yes.
is that ability to stay connected with loved ones across distances.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's like having this virtual bridge that keeps relationships strong, even when, miles separate us.
And I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to,
I can definitely relate to that.
especially in today's world
Yeah.
where people are more mobile than ever.
Yeah. I've,
Huh.
family scattered all over the place.
Right.
And, without social media, I don't know how we would stay in touch.
It would be much harder.
It'd be so much harder.
Yeah. It really has transformed the way we maintain relationships.
It has. And I think it's, it's not just about staying in touch.
Yeah. Right.
It's about sharing updates.
Yeah.
And like seeing each other's photos.
Feeling like you're part of each other's lives.
Yes, feeling like you're part of each other's lives, even when you're not physically together.
It's really powerful.
It's invaluable.
It is.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that sense of connection. It's so important, and it goes beyond just maintaining existing relationships.
It does.
It can also help you forge new connections.
Right.
And find communities based on shared interests.
Absolutely.
Like that example from the chat about joining an online gardening group.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have fellow gardeners
Your immediate circle.
in your immediate circle,
Right.
you can connect with people
all over the world.
who share that passion.
Yeah. And,
Exchange tips, learn from each other,
build friendships.
build friendships.
Gave that shared interest.
It's amazing.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is. And it really shows like the power of social media to like foster that sense of belonging, and to create connections that might not have existed otherwise.
Exactly.
And I think that's especially important
Yeah.
for people who might feel isolated or marginalized.
In their offline lives.
It's their offline lives.
Yeah.
You know?
Social media can provide that sense of community
Yeah.
that they might be lacking elsewhere.
So it's like finding your digital home,
It is.
a place where you feel
Seen,
heard.
understood.
Yes.
Yeah.
And speaking of learning,
Oh, yeah.
social media has become such an incredible resource for education and personal growth.
It has. And, we touched on this earlier.
We did.
But it's worth emphasizing again
It is.
because the educational opportunities available through social media are vast.
They are.
Sophia mentioned using social media to learn English.
Right.
And it's true, there are so many
Like pages and groups and
tutorials covering everything from language learning to coding to cooking to art.
anything you can imagine.
It's incredible.
You can probably find it.
You probably can.
Yeah.
And it's all at your fingertips.
It's like having a global classroom.
Accessible to anyone with an internet connection.
It's amazing.
It is.
And I think it's really,
Yeah.
it's democratizing knowledge in a way that was never possible before.
It really is.
And that's something that I find incredibly exciting.
Me too. Because it means that knowledge is no longer limited
Right.
to those who can afford it.
Or who have access to traditional educational institutions. It's
Exactly.
open to everyone.
And that's powerful.
It's incredibly powerful. And I think, it has the potential to really transform the world.
I agree.
Yeah. And let's not forget about all the professional opportunities
Oh, yeah.
social media has opened up.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's become an essential tool
For businesses
for businesses to connect with customers,
to market their products.
build brand awareness.
Yeah, it's a whole new world of marketing.
It is. And, think of that bakery we were talking about earlier.
Right.
By showcasing their creations on Instagram, they can attract new customers,
Build a following. And potentially grow their business.
in ways that were just unimaginable before.
Exactly. And I think it's also really leveled the playing field in a way.
It had
because it's given small businesses and entrepreneurs
Yes.
a platform to compete
and to succeed.
alongside larger companies.
Yes. And I think that's really important.
It's about empowering
Yes.
individuals and small businesses.
And, for individuals,
Right.
social media can be a really powerful tool for job searching, networking.
Building a professional presence
Yeah. It's become like almost expected to have a LinkedIn profile.
in many industries.
Yes. And, platforms like Twitter can be really valuable for connecting with people in your field.
Staying informed about trends.
It's definitely changed the way we approach, careers
Absolutely.
and professional development.
It's a whole new world of professional networking.
It is, but beyond like the personal and professional benefits, social media has also proven to be this like force for good
It has.
in a broader societal context.
It's inspiring to see how social media has been used to raise awareness for important causes,
Yes.
to mobilize people for action, and even to influence political discourse.
We've seen so many examples of campaigns going viral,
Yeah.
shining a light on social injustices.
And rallying support for those in need.
It's really given a voice to the voiceless.
It has, and it's empowered individuals to create real change.
And in times of crisis,
Right.
social media can play such a crucial role
Absolutely.
in like disseminating information,
Coordinating relief efforts.
connecting people in need with resources.
We've seen this time and again during natural disasters,
Yes.
where social media has been used to share updates,
Organized donation.
even reunite families,
It's really a testament to the power of these platforms to connect people.
and to foster a sense of collective action.
Yeah, and amidst all the seriousness,
Right.
we can't forget about like the simple joy of entertainment
Oh, yeah.
that social media provides.
Absolutely.
Right.
From funny memes to heartwarming animal videos.
Yes.
To those feel-good stories that restore your faith in humanity.
Yeah, sometimes you just need that,
You do.
you know.
And social media can provide it.
Yeah, they can brighten our day, make us laugh, remind us of the good in the world.
It's a valuable outlet
Yes.
for creativity,
For humor.
for those moments of lighthearted fun that are so essential for well-being.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's all about balance, isn't it?
It is.
Recognizing and embracing the positive aspects while also being mindful of the potential pitfalls.
Right. Finding that sweet spot.
Exactly, where we can harness the power of these platforms for good.
Right.
Connecting with others, learning, growing, making a positive impact.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into social media,
Yeah,
I think it's clear that it's a complex
it is.
and multifaceted tool with both immense potential and inherent risks.
It's a double-edged sword in a way.
It is, but I think the key is to approach it with awareness,
Awareness
critical thinking,
and a commitment to using it in ways that enrich our lives.
and contribute to a better world.
Well said.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Speak Smart podcast, where we took a deep dive into the world of social media.
It's been a pleasure.
It has. And we hope you've gained some valuable insights today and feel empowered to navigate this digital landscape thoughtfully and intentionally.
Absolutely. And remember, stay smart out there.
Thank you for listening to the Speak Smart podcast.